Okay, welcome back. Late May 1862, and it's been a really interesting year this so far. I mean, the spring offensive got off to an absolutely sort of incredible start, inflicting a significant defeat on the Austrians at the field at Plevna. And not just one defeat. I mean, bear in mind, the opening engagement, we inflicted 50,000 casualties, then went on to have a much more substantial and sustained action where we inflicted some 148,000 casualties. And so it's a significant surprise to me, not least because of, my assessment of Austrian forces in this area. Even though I was aware that it was much of their field command, I had a sense that they were a bit of a shadow of their former selves, that they were lacking the kind of strategic depth and breadth which they had at the beginning of the war, and I don't think that's the case now. I think that, this counter-offensive has shown that they've very much still got game, and it is a testament to the strategic depth that they have, that they're able to replace losses as they have, and that they still have, sort of replacements, reserves that they're able to bring into the field. And I'd never imagined they would have counter-attacked immediately after such a significant defeat, but they had the forces to do it. I think the forces that they've pushed into Plevna is a mixture of fresh kind of sort of reserves that they have, plus some of the partially sort of damaged units, perhaps, that were in the last action at Plevna. But it's a substantial force, and because it's kind of rather caught us off balance, it's resulted in Abdi Pasha falling back, and the Fox, Omar Pasha, now very much trapped inside the fortress at Plevna. And alarmingly, the fortress is slightly overcrowded. It's not a large enough fortress to really house this number of forces. He actually gets a bit of a combat penalty inside the fortress. So it's a little bit alarming. We're in a slightly dangerous situation for his force anyway. And we can't do anything right away. That's the frustrating thing. He's a very effective commander, as we know, of course. So in the event that he is assaulted, there's a pretty good chance that he'll be able to hold out. But there's also a really good chance that he won't, But he is in a fortress. He does have, it's an intact fortress. So what we need to do is to maneuver our forces, buy a bit of time. We are on the clock, really, in the north here now, because there's been a siege which has been ongoing for some time in Salonika, and it looks like the Austrians have more forces there. I don't think they've brought forces down. We always have to keep in mind that these intelligence assessments that we get, these pop-ups, they're not perfect. And I don't mean they're not perfect insofar as it's a game bug or anything like that. It's the forces that are observed in this region. It's what we can see based on the kind of mobility factor of adjacent units and so on and so forth. It's eminently possible that forces can be concealed in dead ground and this kind of thing, and we can now see a more substantial Austrian force in Salonika. It's not much more substantial, because actually if we look at the forces, a large part of this is a kind of logistical tale. We've got a lot of kind of what look to be supply columns that have been maybe pressed down into Salonika. They may have even been landed under our noses in the Aegean. That may have happened. But yeah, they still, in terms of their teeth arms, it's only been slightly bolstered from what I can see. They've got a few Army Corps division, a reserve division by the looks of it, and then a lot of kind of military police forces, supply wagons, sort of prospecting expeditions pressed as irregulars, so very small irregular detachments. Yeah, it's a bewildering kind of force that they have. That might be an indication that, again, in some ways they might be running low if they're pressing certain kinds of forces into the line. I don't know, maybe not, but we didn't see lots of prospecting forces and, military police forces being pressed forward early on in the war. It may mean nothing, however. So, yeah, and then on top of all of this, of course, we now have a Serbian revolt to contend with, and it's a complex one. They're not just brigands or rebels. They're kind of recognized by what was the government in Belgrade as, Serbian soldiers. That complicates things, because we're not at war with Serbia. And it's a complicated situation. And they are rebelling in our territory, which is militarily controlled by the Austrians. So it's very complex, this. We've got to tread a careful path. And as I say, the plan really is rather sneakily to try and get rid of the Austrians to kind of deal with this with the forces they have in the region. And they do have sufficient forces to do it. They're not really moving, though. I don't know why. Maybe there's supply issues. Maybe they want to keep the focus on Salonika. But anyway, the main focus here is to resolve this issue. We can't do anything right away, but what we do want to do is to kind of get all of our forces together. It's going to involve Avdi Pasha moving north into Varna. The reason being is when we conduct an offensive back into Plevna to lift siege, we want activated commands to move simultaneously and arrive in Plevna at the same time. That's a substantial force. That force does have a commander in play, or at least one commander that we can see. Further to that, there are support forces to the north. Possibly this army could be reinforced by some army corps that have been pulled back into Western Romania. So, yeah, it's definitely not over in the Western Balkans, but we do need to engage. We need to lift the siege. Once we move into Plevna, one thing we need to keep in mind is we have the support of Omar Pasha's force inside the fortress also in the offensive. I don't think his force is strong enough to sally from the fortress. If we try and move out of the fortress in a passive posture to slip out, it might come off, but his force, it might not. His force might get mauled. It's like a 4 or 5 day march, 10 days. Okay, to the south. To Varna, it's 5 days. That's a lot of time marching through Plevna with massive Austrian forces there. So I don't fancy it. I don't fancy that. I think that's much more dangerous. That's much more likely to get his force completely annihilated. And the Austrian force is large enough. If his force is somewhat, Omar Pasha's force is disorganized. He's just taken on a lot of replacements. It requires time for those forces to be integrated into his command, and for his command to be brought up to kind of fighting shape. So, yeah, tricky one this. I think we move Avdi Pasha to Varna. It's a 5 day march. That still gives him 10 days, to get replacements, to get some reorganization squared away. He's got Hussein Avni and 2 other commands, Abdul Karim and Rita Pasha. That pretty much puts most of our field command in Varna. There's a chance also that the massive Austrian force in Plevna may kind of part of it, maybe into Agosta, they may press forces down into Sofia, we don't know. But the key thing is really we're looking next turn, we're looking at the beginning of June to conduct an offensive into Plevna, and then probably with Omar Pasha's force, or one of the force that's in the best shape, frankly, to move from Plevna down to Sofia and at least position itself for a strike towards Salonika, lift the siege of Salonika. So that's the only move we're going to make at the moment. It's a fairly passive one. We're going to set all of our forces to hold at all costs. If they try and push us in Varna, we will absolutely be giving them a fight with everything we have there. Let's check the reservists that we have in the kind of volunteer forces. We've got Ukrainians, Romanians, and just a hodgepodge of German conscripts. I don't think we do anything with those forces. We keep them in Adrianople, of course. Moving out of Rumelia does create the possibility of a push through Rumelia towards Adrianople. Adrianople is well defended, though, and it will muster a very large garrison in addition to what we have there anyway. So that's it, really. In terms of Egypt, Mehmed Ali is going to push down to Cairo to secure the ground in Cairo. I think what we might do is to push an assault posture, all-out attack, and he's going to press down towards Suyat in the... or is it Suyat? Suaif, south of Cairo. Probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm not confident of the pronunciation of that. To look to assault the area south of Cairo. And again, just clear that town of Egyptian forces. We're just looking to really clear the area around Cairo. The main body of their forces in Alexandria. There's a chance they might make a play for Cairo. We're pressing through Cairo anyway, so we'll invite them to kind of engage us in battle there. Actually, we could even double back once there into Cairo. That's only a 9-day march, isn't it? 13 days. Yeah, we'll take it. That means we end in Cairo and we're in a position to defend Cairo. That's it. The only other thing is we secured the ground really then between Sana and Aden. Aden is still besieged. We're activated. We're going to press on. It's a 9-day march to Aden. We'll be looking to lift the siege at Aden in 9 days' time. We're set to all-out attack there also. In terms of our combat moves, that's it. We are going to prepare the fleet now. So it's Mustafa Pasha. What have we got? We've got the transport fleet also, haven't we? So let's get these guys into the trade box. 10 days, if they're on schedule, of course. And once that force is there, we're actually going to split the fleet into two sections. One will function as an escort for our commerce there, and the other will function as a kind of commerce radar. They will interchange periodically, and then what we'll try and do is to keep a portion of our force permanently in port, recovering cohesion, getting supplies, and so on. So we have a continuous naval presence in the Mediterranean. This brigade, I mean, we're having supply issues. There's a good chance it's the Egyptians. A smart move. We're having supply issues in Cyrenaica. We've already moved the Tripoli division back because we do have access to supplies in Tripoli. We're going to get this brigade to riverine points into Tripoli and to enter the structure once there. Yeah. Okay, so the main thing with Egypt is just to clear the ground around Cairo, create a bit of security there. That's it. We've got the Persian Gulf Fleet moving back into Basra. And that's our military moves. Pretty tame moves, really, considering that this was meant to be the beginning of our spring offensive. And we were looking for, more offensives, really. A kind of continuous rolling offensive. We'd secured Plevna, we've secured Varna, but they've regained the initiative. And big statement, pretty good move, really, to be fair. Let's check out the rest of the reports. Now, we do have enough private capital, manufactured goods and steel to press another section of railroad down into Samaria and then link up Jerusalem. And, as you know, let's have a look. 22 manufactured goods. Yeah, that's okay. So we've got a huge infrastructure project going on at the moment. In the first section of line, it's still got 225 days remaining, but this time in a year and a half, we will see railroads connecting Constantinople right up to Damascus and even ultimately Jerusalem, and then the next section will be well underway going down to Baghdad. After the attack, the Netherlands actually lost. Okay, yeah, the Dutch are getting control. It's so depressing. See, Protectorate status is having real ramifications. The towns are under Dutch control. Yeah, colonial penetration's up to 60%. We won't be forgetting this region, however. What if we get a casus belli against them? No, we don't. Well, we can manufacture one when the time comes, sure enough. Okay, let's check the economy. So 161 units of goods sold in the national market for 679. That's very good indeed. 71 units exported for 227. 34 units imported for 68. So good trade balance, really strong domestic market sales, fairly consistent. And, yeah, happy with all of that. Let's check our exports. We'll keep exports set to 10 manufactured goods, for the time being anyway. Good stuff. Happy with all of that. Assets balance looks reasonably sound. We'll be at 53 units of steel next term. Import 10 units from the UK, or 5 from the UK, 5 from the United States, just to bolster our steel income, because we are doing, engaged in a big sort of public works program, really. Okay, I think that's it. We're going to keep an eye on officers. We are in a position soon to begin the construction of another corps. We have an army corps in construction, of course, in Smyrna. Let's check on the progress of that. Yeah, so it's in construction. That's good. Not yet. We'll begin the construction of a regular army corps soon, I think. I think we need 41 officers anyway, so we don't have quite enough yet. That's it, I think. That's that term, basically. Yeah, so we'll keep a close eye on what happens in the Balkans. I'm a little bit anxious for this term. We don't want to see Omar Pasha's force, as elusive and effective as it has been. It's very much cornered and in a tricky position, It suffers a penalty. It's too crowded into that fortress. And, yeah, I mean, the Austrians could really force the issue there. They would suffer heavy losses, I think. Very heavy losses. But they might make repeated attempts. They could make repeated attempts at the fortress. In a weird way, if he is sacrificed, it's not. I mean, he's no pawn to be sacrificed. He would leave their force dreadfully weakened, I would suggest. A counter-attack would be very successful. But anyway. I'll put you on pause for a late May, and we'll see you on the other side in, I guess, early June. Okay, we passed turn then, we're in early June, and yeah, no big developments really in the Balkans. They didn't press an assault against Plevna. The moment for Omar Pasha has passed. What they did do is to press their force down. They continued to hold a significant force at Plevna with a reserve in Bucharest. Looks like they have an army corps sitting on their left flank at Constanza, but they pushed, if you like, the lion's share of their force down, looking to press Sofia. It's besieged Sofia, is like Salonika, is well defended. These function really well as holding forces. We have to be a little bit careful. In real life, the Ottomans did develop a bit of a Maginot mentality, especially in the 1870s. We don't want to do that, but it is important to have significant fortresses, especially in big sort of victory locations, if you like, prestigious locations that have a big impact on our national morale if they were lost, and also a positive national morale for the Austrians if they were gained. And we remember in the First War against Russia, we had a moment where Sofia was quite easily captured by them. It was a very average fortress. It wasn't well defended, and they pressed an assault on it, and it was, it was not good. Now, we are in a position to launch a counter-attack against Plevna. We're going to do just that. First of all, Omar Pasha, now reorganized, is going to get out of the fortress. He's going to sally from the fortress. He's going to be set to defensive posture. We're going to move in Hussein Avni, whose force is in good shape. He is going to press through 2 days into Plevna. Once there, he is going to press on. 6 days march to Sofia. Avni Pasha, also in pretty good shape. Not, perfect, but good enough. In fact, I'll tell you what we're going to do, cheekily here, is let's set him to a defensive posture. We are going to switch. We're going to switch some forces out, is what we're going to do. We're actually going to give him an additional guard corps. And that should be a little bit more iron in the glove. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, let's check if we can do that with any. We don't really need to do that with Hussein Avni's force. Omar Pasha's in good shape. So Hussein Avni's moving through 6 days to Sofia. He's going to be joined by Avni Pasha, 4 days. Now the difficulty here is he may not move 9 days. That's not good. And we're going to move to Pasha, 6 days. Rita Pasha 6 days. How long does it take? 8 days. Yeah, we're going to do that because at least if in the 9th day we get to support. I'm kind of tempted to press Omar Pasha down as well to Sofia, but he would get there very quickly, I suspect. 5 days. Three, 9. We don't want him going in penny packets, that's the thing. So 9 days for Avni Pasha. But only a 6-day march for Hussein Avni. I don't like it. They've got most of their force in Sofia. That's the thing that bothers me. We don't want our force kind of, we don't want our forces going in, sort of trickling in, army at a time, really. We want them to kind of be impactful and to engage, even ideally from multiple directions. 2 days. Nine days. 3, 9. That makes sense. I mean, that basically means that Omar Pasha is landing in Sofia at the same time as Avni Pasha. That sets them up for a nice move down towards Salonika as well. And in 9 days, I mean, from day 8, they've got the support of Abdul Karim Nadir in Rumelia. It makes much more sense. That leaves Hussein Avni sitting there. How do we play this? 5, 10. From Plevna, he can conduct support anyway, actually. So, I mean, I'm not sure we have to overthink that too much. That leaves us with Riza Pasha. I mean, that leaves Varna open, but with Riza Pasha sitting in Plevna. But with ample support. Riza Pasha can be supported from the south by Abdul Karim, plus he's supported by forces in Sofia. This is the best move. It's an aggressive move. It allows us to regain the momentum. And I mean, Austrian forces in Sofia can draw supply from the west now. They're likely to fall back westward. The good thing here is they've got their finger out and they've started rolling up the Serbian rebellion, which benefits us because when we retake this territory, we don't want to retake it with any kind of political complications. We don't want the Serbian state having control of iron mines as some kind of fruity concession that they feel is owed by the fact that they partially liberated the region or something like this, or that it's predominantly populated by Serbs or anything like this. We're not sort of interested in this kind of ethnic nationalism. From Sofia, we're well positioned. Yeah, we're well positioned to lift the siege on Salonika. The structure's still intact. Yeah, that's gonna be the move. It's gonna be a lot of forces moving at once. I want to recheck everything here. So Hussein Avenue moves north to Plevna, and I'm even half tempted to conduct an additional, kind of two-pronged offensive. We want him supporting, really. Let's not go crazy. We want him supporting. Part of me thinks let's push north to Bucharest with Hussein Avenue, maybe with support of Rita Pasha. Something like this. No, we won't, because we want our forces. We don't want our forces pressing north of the Danube when really they need to be conducting support for Sofia. We don't know how big this force is. Again, I mean, it's a mixed intelligence. It could be larger than it appears. I mean, we know it's got 4 army corps. Matasun corps aren't corps, they're marines. Or Matasun, they're marine divisions, basically. Brigade. Again, they refer to other forces as corps. Part of maybe the terminology that's used that aren't really corps-sized forces. Some of them are, though. It's 4 army corps, basically 4 divisions. And we're going to be landing in with 6. We want to get this right. How long would it take Hussein Avenue to move north? 4 days. That's not enough time for Rita Pasha to get into place anyway. That's the problem. That's the thing I don't like about that. Plus, Hussein Avenue could be involved in a massive action in Plevna. Because bear in mind, this force could be supported. Yeah, we won't do it. It's daft to do this. Hussein Avenue moves into Plevna. He stays there, basically. So we've got Plevna covered. We've got Rita Pasha also in Plevna from day 6. Abdul Karim, Rumelia, Abdi Pasha, and Omar Pasha. Let's do this. Let's do it. That's pretty much it. That's all of our moves. It's going to be a big kind of counter offensive. Yeah. Quite a complex maneuver that, but I think it's going to come off. It's going to be good. In terms of combat reports then, we never made it south of Cairo. It looks like these are actually garrison forces created by the depot we have in Cairo, engaged by kind of what looks to be a light cavalry division of the Egyptians. It's a victory for us. But Mehmed Ali Pasha does not make it to the south. It looks like the brigade that was in the south has moved anyway. He's not activated, so he's going to sit tight. He's done pretty good work. He's cleared the area around Cairo. Probably the next opportunity we're going to try and push up to Alexandria. We'll probably move from Giza. He's not activated now, so you move quite slow. You notice he gets really good movement in Egypt. Quite flat ground, good weather. And we also win the engagement outside Aden. There are actually 2 engagements. We destroy a number of elements. That's good. They've still got forces in the area. We're actually going to deposit. He's not activated. We're now going to deposit Zag Mustafa inside the fortress in Aden. But I can't do that for some bewildering reason. Okay. Good, he's set to a defensive posture. We'll settle for that. The annoying thing is, and egg on our faces, as we move out, they move straight in and retake Sana. We need to basically, next time we take Sana, we need to really hold a force there and build it up. It's just getting really... I can't believe we're still pouring money away into Yemen. It's a protectorate. The Dutch get protectorate status in Sumatra, and the place automatically begins to go over to Dutch control without any problems whatsoever. You know, not happening for us in Yemen, huh? When this war's over in Austria, you know, we'll send more forces. We can't send 80,000, anything like that. We can't supply 80,000. But we'll create a lot of kind of new units, small brigades, so we can begin to hold down ground and begin to really pacify this region. No reason why we should be fighting an insurgency there now, frankly. Right, okay, that's pretty much it. That's the kind of military action this turn. We want to check on the fleet then in the trade box. We did move our fleet there. And let's set it to a defensive posture. Let's split it into two. So how many... okay. That'll do. Or not. 5 units and 6. Okay, fine, I will. Yeah. Right, so Mustafa Pasha's going to sit with the merchants, and he is going to, yeah, he's going to sit tight. Osman Pasha, he's going to conduct kind of offensive operations outside the trade box. Well, kind of offensive operations, I mean, a naval combat patrol, I suppose. Into the Adriatic. Trying a bit of intelligence also, what's going on in the Adriatic. Ten days up there, fine. That's pretty much it for our military moves. I don't think there's anything else. Egypt is doing good. We're sitting outside Cairo. We control the region around Cairo now. Yeah, Egypt's pretty much in the bag. It's a done deal. And the offensive is planned against the Austrian forces. It's all very contingent on where Austrian forces, of course, move in the next fortnight. But anyway, let's check the rest of our reports. Yeah, the Army Corps is almost finished. Training, we've got 35 officers, or 35 units of officers. Okay, Gatling gun is good. It's a technology that gives us a defensive advantage. We get that kind of sort of osmosis fashion. We don't have to research it. It's something that's suddenly become available. Probably it's been used in the American Civil War or something. But that's an important military development. It actually gives us... adds 2 new units to your force pool. Let's have a look. It's not always clear or obvious what these units are. What it really does is to recreate a unit which we already have. So, for example, a fortress, generic fortress division is just recreated with slightly different stats. So, I don't think we're not going to have a unit of Gatling guns or anything like that. I'm not sure what I'm even looking, but let's have a look just in case. Sometimes these new units are indicated, or these new versions of the same unit are indicated by slightly different unit card, you know. That's much more true of the big qualitative changes, like muzzle-loaded rifles, breech-loaded rifles, these kind of things. These represent, if you like, a new generation of infantry soldier. I suppose the nature of reloading the rifle being the catalyst for a broader kind of restructuring of the force. Okay, economy then, let's have a look. Decent exports. Yeah, that's a new milestone, 700. Unbelievable. Dramatic economic growth. 171 goods sold in the national market for 712 private capital. 71 units exported for 244. Imports 44 units for 108. Christ, I can't believe we're selling 700 units of goods on a domestic market. It's incredible. Okay, let's set our exports. Let's look, before we do any more of this, at another stretch of railroad. You know, our economy is that powerful at the moment that, we can almost build a stretch of railroad. Let's see if we can press the last stretch down to Jerusalem. Out of 50, you'll do it. And that is it. We now have continuous rail construction going from Ankara all the way down to Jerusalem. And that is basically the Van line, which will be complete, I guess, in a year with a branch off going to Damascus. There will be another branch off going to Aleppo. But the next focus is going to be the eastern branch then, the Mesopotamian branch, which will move down from Erzurum, Bitlis, Hakkari, I guess Mosul, Kirkuk, Baghdad, and then ultimately I guess Kut, Nasiriyah, Basra, and then Kuwait as well. And then we'll build our first diamond mine in Kuwait as well. Yeah, and that would have more than doubled the size of our railroads. We have to keep an eye on our coal consumption. This is going to dramatically, this isn't just railroad. This comes with lots of locomotives, coaling stations, and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's going to be a game changer for the economy of this region. The economy of this region is at a stroke going to be plugged into Constantinople, and it's not a poor, undeveloped region anyway. The Levant has always been a really, really wealthy, kind of urbanized, cosmopolitan part of the world, and yeah, it's going to be sort of a really important part of our economy. We've got a vineyard, of course, in Latakia. Dye quarries. We could actually build another dye quarry in Beirut also. Maybe that's the next thing we build before we begin the Eastern line, the Mesopotamian line. And that's way ahead of schedule, by the way, in terms of when the Ottomans had railroads in the Middle East. By decades, I would say. So we're doing good. Right, let's complete our exports. Reserve food. Let's check on that really quickly. Demand has gone up for reserve foods. Okay, let's go with Brazil then for another 2 units. Central Brazil, where's Parana? Let's get it up here, is it? Yeah, why do I think Parana was Brazil? It's not, is it? This is interesting. Colombia is actually quite a good export market for timber. We need to get some merchants in the Caribbean Maritime box by the looks of it. Coffee, gold. Looks like a Britain. That should be good. Yeah, that's fine. We'll do 7 units per turn from Japan. Importing from Japan, the global market is upon us. Right, that's our export set. One of the reasons why you should go through this every turn as well, because you start noticing things like that. You start thinking, oh, preserved foods has gone down a couple of units, You don't necessarily notice that the increase in domestic market sales until you start seeing this figure dwindling, and then you can start addressing. You don't want to get to a point where there's almost none, and then for whatever reason, you know, there's no availability in the world market, and you have to all of a sudden improvise something from scratch or experience some kind of shortage of something, which can cause dissatisfaction. And once your population becomes accustomed to, you know, access to certain kinds of commodities, if those things become unavailable, it's, you know, not terribly popular. Right, all good. That's fine. That's the rest of the reports. So the economy is set, exports are set, assets balance is sound. We've got a big offensive plan then for the next fortnight. We'll see what happens. Everything's, of course, you know, it's contingent on what the Austrians do. But it puts us in a good position to then really further move and deal with the situation in the west, lift the siege at Salonika, and deal with the Austrian forces also in Skopje. Hopefully by then the Serbians there will have vacated this region. Yeah. So yeah, fingers crossed. Early June, got to kick past turn, and we'll see you on the other side in late June. Okay, welcome back. We passed turn, then we were in late June, and yeah, big round militarily. I mean, you can see that our kind of fairly elaborate maneuvers have come off. We've retaken control of central Bulgaria, and well, the first big engagement then, and the only really massive engagement, is outside Plevna. Yeah, it's huge. What we can actually see is the Austrian forces outside Sofia. At a sudden change of heart, they turn back, and they are caught with the besieging force at Plevna. That force only comprises 250,000 men now. And that is, I think that's, I mean, we've just laid waste to like 90,000, destroyed however many regiments, 5, 9, 16, 17 regiments, something like this, only taking 12,000 casualties. What that suggests is these forces are at breaking point. Their morale, their organisation is low, their forces are at reduced strength. We take 24,000 prisoners as well. This is a real collapse of a significant part of the Austrian command. What is left falls back up to Bucharest. This time, we're going to seize the advantage. We're not going to let them sit tight for a prolonged period of time, gathering reinforcements. We're going to be bold here and conduct a prolonged march. It is the summer. We can cover further ground. Bucharest is flat ground. So Omar Pasha, 9-day march. Avdiv Pasha, 9-day march. He's going to be supported in the south by Rita Pasha, who's anchoring the position at Plevna. The corps that is in Constanta is going to be attacked by Hussein Avni Pasha, who's going to make a move up on the south bank of the Danube. 6 days. He can resolve the action there, and he's then in a position to support. And I wonder how long it will take him. 8. If it was only one more day, that'd kind of be perfect. 6 days. 5 days. Let's get Abdul Karim Nadir then. He's actually activated. He's going to set to an offensive. Varna. Constanza. 10 days. %65 chance force march would get him there earlier and be in a position to support. That's the thing I'm thinking. Or we could ignore Abdul Karim Nadir on the right. Get him. That's a 9-day march anyway. I think that's a Plevna. Or Varna first. Let's do it. He moves up on the right flank. We're going to force march him. It will reduce his organisation, but his organisation is reasonably good. If the force march comes off, it's only a 65% chance. That gets him in Constanta on day 8. That puts him in a position to then also conduct a supporting role for the main offensive across the Danube with 2 commands led by Omar Pasha, the best commander. That does mean kind of sacrificing. I know that the whole point of positioning ourselves in central Bulgaria was to make a move. My thinking is Salonika is not at risk. They cannot press an assault with the forces they've got. They just can't do it. Salonika's got a garrison of 70,000 men. It's not going to happen. You know, even if they badly damage the fortress. And the fortress is intact. At this moment in time, it's intact. They've got reserve forces to the north in Skopje, but not a lot. They just don't have enough to do it. And they can't wait. They're not going to starve the city out. It's got a massive depot and has sea access. So as far as I can see, it's safe. And I really want to destroy as many of these Austrian forces as I can whilst the opportunity presents itself. So I think this is going to be the move. It's going to be an offensive north. It's not about taking ground. If we pull back once we defeat Austrian forces in Bucharest, I'm fine with that. But the key thing is we get 2 field commands in Constanta laying siege, and we engage the lion's share of the Austrian force. They do have reserves. They have some fresh forces here. It's not going to be kind of easy peasy, you know. Some of those forces might be inside the kind of the garrison. We'll see what happens. We're going to be crossing a river. It's going to be a big action, but we're going to be taking the fight to them for the first time in some time. So yeah, that's going to be the plan in the simplest possible terms. And once that happens, we might even fall back south of the Danube, because we will need this summer at some point to dispatch a force to lift the siege of Salonika. That's pretty much it. In terms of Egypt, but in terms of other combat reports, Egypt, then, the Egyptians are conducting with a cavalry division, by the looks of it, kind of raiding actions. They've retaken Dumyat to the north and the delta. That's okay. We are activated. I think what we're actually going to do is to counter that move. They are going to fall back to Alexandria. We're going to pursue them. We're going to engage the main Egyptian army in Alexandria. We're actually on the verge now of being able to make peace with Egypt. We don't have any diplomats. When we have a bit of kind of diplomatic clout, we're going to resource our department a bit more effectively. We're going to send a mission to Egypt. And we're just going to get them to dole out most of their state revenue. We'll have access rights anyway. We're also going to make them... we're going to compel them to make Sudan independent. The reason being is this just breaks them up. It makes them more manageable. Egypt is much more manageable as a kind of North African state. And we would then have a kingdom of sorts, or a sultanate in Africa, which is, you know, well disposed towards us, quite friendly. And we want to keep that in mind. The British are making moves to get some colonial penetration in Khartoum. And if we can get a friendly kind of sultanate here, I think that Sudan, unlike Egypt, it is a colonial region, and we already know that because the British are playing colonial cards there. Yeah, it's a British-influenced territory at this stage. We could very quickly make headway. You know, we could get some kind of coastal position set up. We could set a really small expeditionary force to deal with these rebels, suppress the revolt for the new kind of Sudanese sultanate that we're going to create. And, you know, with a friendly host, really, we could begin to develop some pretty dramatic colonial penetration in Sudan. And, yeah, why not? With access rights also, you know, into Egypt, Sudan becomes kind of our Libya in the Red Sea, really. And also provides us with a good basis to eventually kind of get some penetration into the Horn of Africa. So, that's my thinking. Sudan is going to be more manageable as a friendly sultanate, which has been made independent because of the peace deal. We've forced the Egyptians to make them independent. We'll have transit rights, and any wealth that the Egyptian state generates pretty much is handed over to us for the next 20 years. And when 20 years is up, in 1882, we'll just occupy Cairo and do it again. We'll make it a permanent thing. We could even look at other options come 82. So the other action then is a bit of maritime action. It looks like we we engage one of the Austrian raiding fleets, the corvettes, on their way back to Trieste, sink them. We do take some hits. We lose 100 men, but that's a pretty convincing action. And that cruiser division, as they call it, is at the bottom in Davy Jones's locker. We're going to move this Osman Pasha's fleet back then to Constantinople for the time being. We're set to a defensive posture. Get them reorganised, resupplied, and then they will switch out with the escort force, which is doing pretty good work in the Mediterranean trade box. That's it. That's our military moves. In terms of Yemen, so we have resecured the region. That's quite interesting. It's intriguing. They've forced units into this area. So we've kind of resecured. Well, they kind of keep retaking Sanaa, but every time they vacate it, it just converts back to our control because it's a protectorate now, you know. But they've concentrated their forces around Aden for a siege. Right, we're going to sit outside. Defensive posture, hold at all costs, and invite them into open battle. That's what we want. These other forces they have now are more peripheral. This is the main body of their force. We are whittling them down, and it's going to be harder for them. I mean, what's the revolt risk? It's still depressingly high, especially in Sanaa itself. Anyway, we need to lift the siege at Aden. You know, we're in the fight. We have to just accept it for what it is. So, yeah, we lift the siege at Aden, and then we look to move north. Get a military force of some kind in Sana set up. Get some security. Maybe build a proper industrial fort, the likes of which we have in Aden, in Sana this time. Maybe also send the cavalry division to control Hodeida. We need to try and secure this pocket and begin to consolidate Yemen, which I know I've been saying for 12 years now. But anyway. That's pretty much it. That's our moves. Now, I have actually, cheekily, before I unpaused, set exports, because it can be a bit time-consuming just watching someone click the same things each turn. I'm going to quickly check them anyway, make sure that I've done everything correctly, and yeah, everything looks good. Check assets balance. That's good. And check our indices really quickly. 169 units of goods, national market for 696. 77 exported for 251. I'd like to see exports climbing more than they are. Domestic market sales have climbed a lot in the last year, when you think about it. You know, we were scratching the 600s about, what, 6 months ago? And now we're sort of at the top of the 600s going into 700. It's sustained. It's kind of sustained growth as well. It's really good. Imports up then, 47 units for 414. I think we can drop off steel exports now. We get 10 units per turn. We're going to wait another turn before we begin the next stretch of rail line. That's it. That's our export set for the time being. Check other reports to ensure I haven't missed anything. No, that's it. So I'm going to pass turn, and then we'll leave it at the beginning of next turn, because what we want to see is how the offensive continues, really, because this is going to be a seminal moment in this war. I think we are risking it a little bit. We're being a little bit more rash, but we have them on the ropes. We've inflicted some really hefty defeats, and what this revealed, the most recent action in Plevna revealed, is the extent to which Austrian forces, their organisation has been kind of eroded. A lot of their forces are at partial strength, and we have another opportunity here to lay waste to a large part of their force. It's going to be led by Omar Pasha again. He's going to have the support of the entire Ottoman field command, the entire Imperial Army, as long as the force march comes off Abdul Karim, will be supporting this engagement. So it's going to be big. Going to put you on pause. It's late June. We'll pass turn. See you in early July. Okay, welcome back then. Early July. And the offensive across the Danube, which I would say was a little bit of a gamble on our part, it's come off. It has absolutely come off, and things have gotten really exciting. So, well, first of all, the first engagement through the kind of turn is on day 2, which is clearing the ground around Aden itself, trying to break the siege. We destroy 2 elements, inflict 2,000 casualties, take 1,500 ourselves. We also take 2,000 prisoners. So, good action, but of course, the real source. The Battle of Bucharest on day 6, and it is an absolute corker. Another one. We inflict 91,000 casualties, destroy 5 elements, take 7,400 prisoners, we lose 32,000. Such a big victory again, and that's on the back of the other losses they've sustained. You know, it's how long can this continue, sort of thing? How long can we continue sort of slaughtering Austrians wholesale before this ends? We need to have a think about what to do here. So we've got really depleted Austrian forces now in Bucharest. There are reserve Austrian forces, although they look like they've taken some losses. They're looking weaker than they have in a long time. We've got a number of Austrian forces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 army corps, something like that. A large part of the Austrian force in Bucharest, I think, fell back into Constanta. So we kind of enveloped them, trapped them a little bit. They can still slip north, of course, unless they're blocked into Moldavia. But we can look to attack these forces. My thinking is their organisation is probably quite low. These bars, they're not always accurate. You notice that as soon as you click past turn, it suddenly reflects the real You know, so maybe it's an estimate or something like that. But in Bucharest, they're very vulnerable indeed. Much of this force has been destroyed, and yeah, I mean, it's been a story of, for the most part, overwhelming success this summer. We're in early July, still many months of hot weather to go, and you know, keep in mind, this really was where the kind of teeth arms of the Austrian army was. Where to go from here, I need to have a bit of a think about. Part of the temptation is play safe. Part of the temptation is, fine, we came what we did to do. Let's fall back south of the bank, let's recover, get our forces in good shape, lift the siege, move south, lift the siege outside Salonika, and yeah, look to kind of look to maybe hold a defensive line, something like that. That's a part of the temptation here, you know. The other thing is, our gambling has paid off. You know, we're in the north bank of the Danube now. We've got Austrian forces possibly trapped. We need to have a bit of a think about it, and there's a few things we need to think about. One, you will notice here, of course, there is a Russian army sitting in Bessarabia. It's been a while since we've seen a Russian army appear on the front here. The last time it didn't mean anything, and it might not mean anything now, but it might mean everything. So we need to have a think about that. The other pressing issue, of course, is, you know, what if we suffer a really big defeat up here? And this means that all of our forces have to fall back to Adrianople. You know, it can take a real long time then to get a force into Salonika. It'd be much better to move a force from the north that's in good shape. Even if we hold for a turn, like a fortnight in Petric, before we press to lift the siege. I don't know. Another consideration is something that I noticed. Why would there be pillaged regions in the Austrian hinterland? I hear you asking. Yeah. Possibly trouble in paradise. Their national morale is not that low yet. It's only at 92. They might have had a scripted event. I don't know. Something is up. Something is up. They've not gone to war all of a sudden with any German states or anything like that. There's no reason why this is happening. It can only be as a result of some kind of internal revolt. I don't think the Serbians would have been able to get insurgents that far north. I mean, maybe they could raid into Hungary, but they would really struggle, I think, to get forces that far north. So the Austrians might be facing a bit of an internal revolt, maybe in their Czech regions. I don't know. But yeah, food for thought. So we need to have a bit of a think about where to go from here, really. The other big engagement then is outside Alexandria. We engage a force of 83,000, and yeah, it's a comfortable defeat actually. We inflict 11,000 casualties, take 3,690, and we could be in a position to assault the fortress. The main Egyptian army falls back to Giza in pretty bad shape. We could either pursue it south or assault the fortress and then pursue it south, and there's a good chance they'll move it to Cairo. I don't know. Few options here. I kind of already set to an assault posture with that in mind, but I think from here we hold off for the time being. I need to have a day or two to think about things and yeah, where to take the war in the Balkans, but light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, there's still some big battles to go, and this could really quickly turn on its head. That's the thing. The Austrian forces that have fallen back into Constanta are massive. Like, they're really substantial. They're not small forces. You know, they've still got a good 200,000 men. This could still be really touch and go. So, I mean, we've got two sieges. One in Bucharest, one in Constanta. We could just sit in both provinces with one force set to a defensive posture to clear the district, isolate the cities. Best case scenario, one of these armies falls into the city, you know. At the very least, they fall back north to Kronstadt. I mean, in Kronstadt, we can see we don't have very good intelligence here. We could see mixed forces. We're not seeing the kind of massive forces. We've got a couple of army corps to the north. They might have forces in the interior still. They might very well have forces in the interior, which they can bring into play. So we've got to keep that in mind as well. But But I'm going to leave it there. Early July. Next video will pick up where we are now in early July, with really, I suppose, a bit of a plan for what to do from here. But it's been a really, really successful round, really successful summer so far, and it feels like we are turning a corner in the Austrian war, and it's been a hell of a war. You know, it's been a tooth and nail struggle against Austria. Not like the last war, which felt comparatively easy against a much more modestly-sized Austrian army, an army a bit like ours, really, a kind of professional army, caught between two different sort of theatres of operations. We really kind of caught them off balance. We made the most of it, you know. We still engaged them in big battles. I mean, we didn't sort of just walk into Vienna or anything like that, but we made the most of their mistakes and quickly got a lot from it. This time round, it's been a different sort of story, you know. It's been a really, really hard fight. And yeah, halfway into the kind of third year of the war, it feels like, you know, we could be in a position to end this. Possibly quite soon. There's a good chance the Austrians, if they're facing an internal revolt with the scale of losses that they're facing, once Bucharest falls and they lose Constanza, they lose national morale points for both of these fortresses as well. There's a real temptation even to assault these fortresses, you know. There's a little bit of a temptation. It's daft to do that. It's daft to be too aggressive. But I think we hold tight. We look to clear Constanta district. And do the same. We've got two commands in either. We've got Rita Pasha in the south anchoring the position, able to support either. So we're in a really strong position here. But we're on the clock. We've got Salonika, Russia, possibly, and imaginary, possibly, Austrian forces. What if they've got another 200,000 soldiers? You know what I mean? That they've mobilized, that they're moving, they're marching right now towards Kronstadt, you know. So, yeah. Food for thought between now and next video. But, yeah, we'll see you in the next video then in early July. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.